Hand coloring refers to any method of manually adding color to a monochrome photograph, generally either to heighten the realism of the image or for artistic purposes. Hand coloring is also known as hand painting or overpainting. Typically, watercolors, oils, crayons or pastels, and other paints or dyes are applied to the image surface using brushes, fingers, cotton swabs or airbrushes. Hand-colored photographs were most popular in the mid to late 19th century before the invention of color photography, and some firms specialized in producing hand-colored photographs. Monochrome photography was first exemplified by the daguerreotype in 1839 and later improved by other methods including calotype, ambrotype, tintype, albumen print and gelatin silver print. The majority of photography remained monochrome until the mid-20th century, although experiments were producing color photography as early as 1855 and some photographic processes produced images with an inherent overall color like the blue of cyanotypes. In an attempt to create more realistic images, photographers and artists would hand-color monochrome photographs. The first hand-colored daguerreotypes are attributed to Swiss painter and printmaker Johann Baptist Eisenring, who used a mixture of gum arabic and pigments to color daguerreotypes soon after their invention. In 1839, colored powder was fixed on the delicate surface of the daguerreotype by the application of heat. Variations of this technique were patented in England by Richard Beard in 1842 and in France by Etienne Lecce in 1842 and Léotard de Luz in 1845. Later, hand coloring was used with successive photographic innovations, from albumen and gelatin silver prints to lantern slides and transparency photography. Parallel efforts to produce colored photographic images affected the popularity of hand coloring. In 1842, Daniel Davis Jr. patented a method for coloring daguerreotypes through electroplating, and his work was refined by Warren Thomson the following year. The results of the work of Davis and Thomson were only partially successful in creating color photographs, and the electroplating method was soon abandoned. In 1850, Levi Hill announced his invention of a process of daguerreotyping in natural colors in his treatise on daguerreotype. Sales of conventional uncolored and hand-colored daguerreotypes fell in anticipation of this new technology. Hill delayed publication of the details of his process for several years, however, and his claims soon came to be considered fraudulent. When he finally did publish his treatise in 1856, the process, whether bona fide or not, was certainly impractical and dangerous. With the advent of photographic emulsions on glass came the potential to make enlargements from them, but for the lack of a sufficiently strong light source to project them onto the receiving emulsion, as prints on paper, canvas or other supports. The solar camera, employing the focused light of the sun, addressed the problem in a repurposing of the solar microscope by American portrait artist David Acheson Woodward in 1857, and others, before being superseded by enlargers employing artificial light sources from the 1880s. Life-size portraits made by this means were hand-colored in crayon or overpainted in oils and were popular into the 1910s. Hand coloring remained the easiest and most effective method to produce full-color photographic images until the mid-20th century, when American Kodak introduced Kodachrome color film. Though the hand coloring of photographs was introduced in Europe, the technique gained considerable popularity in Japan, where the practice became a respected and refined art form beginning in the 1860s. It is possible that photographer Charles Parker and his artist partner William Park Andrew were the first to produce such works in Japan, but the first to consistently employ hand coloring in the country were the photographer Felice Beato and his partner, the illustrated London news artist and colorist Charles Wirgman. In Beato's studio, the refined skills of Japanese watercolorists and woodblock printmakers were successfully applied to European photography, as evidenced in Beato's volume of hand-colored portraits. Native types. Another notable early photographer in Japan to use hand coloring was Yokoyama Matsusaburo. Yokoyama had trained as a painter and lithographer as well as a photographer, And he took advantage of his extensive repertoire of skills and techniques to create what he called Shishing a Buddha or photographic oil paintings, in which the paper support of a photograph was cut away and oil paints then applied to the remaining emulsion. Later practitioners of hand coloring in Japan included the firm of Stillfried and Anderson, which acquired Beato's studio in 1877 and hand-colored many of his negatives in addition to its own. Austrian Baron Ramund von Stillfried und Ratnitz, trained Japanese photographer and colorist.